Naruto exclusive videos lemon come out on my boosty. You can watch and subscribe. Link in the description, like the video and write a comment, enjoy watching. Description: the war ended, but it brought no consolation. Naruto received glory, honor, and respect. But hardly anyone can call his life complete. An old acquaintance gives the hero a chance in another world. Chapter 5: Realities. Half a year had passed since that council. Now Naruto was sleeping peacefully and brazenly, his head on Mito's lap. The entire village already knew that they were together. It was both good and bad at the same time. Good because others stopped hitting on Haim, and bad because Daichi had given orders not to show up, since Naruto was a member of the Council of Elders and the head of ANBU. He had to lead a double life. As agreed, I began to train and master Fuinjutsu. Mito helped me a lot in this. She was an unrivaled master, like her mother, grandfather, and grandmother. I already mentioned that Mito's grandmother had blue hair. She was a half-breed Uzumaki, but that didn't bother anyone. With the help of clones, I studied their entire family library in 2 weeks, and then trained for another 2 months. I had to explain to Daichi and Mito how I did it, and also share the Kage technique Bunshin no Jutsu. Daichi quickly reached an agreement with the ruler of Taiko to form a special administration to receive missions for shinobi. Yuzushio Gakure. True, he had to make a concession in the form of a reduced payment rate for the tasks of the residents of Taiko. Afterwards, it was possible to conclude a trade agreement with Taiko, according to which Fuinjutsu shops appeared in the city, where they were engaged in the imposition of seals on things and equipment. In addition, in accordance with the same agreement, goods for medics, and then cigarettes, began to flow from Yuzushio to Taiko and other nearby cities. From the sale of high-quality drugs and tobacco, funds that were extremely necessary really flowed to the village. After for shinobi Yuzushio got missions, Daichi introduced a new system of shinobi ranks and mission ranking classification. And when funds appeared, a huge shinobi academy was built in the shinobi sector. The building was decorated with all the amenities, everything necessary for comfortable training was purchased. Why did I say, when the funds appeared? It's simple. Daichi immediately put everything into forming ANBU, and he was right, since these fighters brought in the lion's share of the village's income. ANBU and Oinen took on missions of rank A, A+, S+. For such tasks, even though they sometimes took several weeks or even months, they paid millions of ryo. I was personally involved in the selection of people. When Mito, Daichi with Izamu, Aya, Aoi, and Akihiro decided to look at the requirements for passing the exam to join the ranks of ANBU, well, they were impressed and realized that in the fight with Mito I was just playing. The exam site was fenced off with an S rank barrier, and the applicants were then carried away, while cleaning up the blood stains all over the site. I was organizing a real war of survival for them. Everything was tested, from the banal genjutsu to forbidden techniques. Out of hundreds of once elite and ordinary jonin, only 50 people passed the exam, and that's not bad. 1/8 of the shinobi, the Yuzushios, were ANBU. 35 ANBU and 15 Oinen received the Yuzukage control seal on their right forearm, which allowed them to instantly move to the Yuzukage or to me at the first request. Among these people, I was the examiner, teacher, father, and executioner. My code name for everyone was Daijin, since the Yuzukage asked me to not show off, but to stay in the shadows. And when I was not at work, the Uzumaki of the village knew me as Naruto Uzumaki and future son-in-law Daichi-sama. Well, I was almost always with Mito. Since at work I was following a direct order from Yuzukage to protect Haim Uzumaki. As for the ANBU and Oinen themselves, a special uniform was developed for them. Everyone wore special porcelain masks, on which strengthening seals of resistance to mental influence, a seal to provide access to air, water, and food, seals of visual contact were applied. Each ANBU received a uniform, a black uniform suit, a matte black sleeveless vest with the maelstrom symbol, shields on the arms and legs, a poncho cloak with hoods, a mask, and one weapon of choice, on which seals were applied, also at the user's choice. All ANBU wore black ponchos to mid-thigh, squad captains wore steel-colored ponchos. I wore the same cloak. Many seals were also applied to the cloaks. ANBU masks symbolized animals, in accordance with which a call sign was chosen. They were made of bone china, it was the hardest. They were painted white, as the bone china had some translucency. The Oinin masks were different, they were made of the same bone china and were painted the same way, but there was no symbolism. The mask was the symbol of the maelstrom, a spiral with slits for the eyes. The Oinin call signs were inanimate nouns. My mask was made of steel by me personally and had a steel color, which is not typical for ANBU masks, exactly the same as the poncho cloak. Under the Yuzuki's orders, ANBU began to conduct reconnaissance and search for disparate clans' potential allies. Now the village was developing rapidly, thanks to the reforms that were stable sources of income. We were preparing to accept the seeds. I continued training my fighters and my personal ones. As it turned out, manipulations with Kekkei Genkai is an ideal opportunity to train chakra control. I constantly practiced sculpting steel through chakra manipulation. At first, I even thought that I had become similar to Deidara with his clay figures. In addition, after consulting with Kurama, and after his personal inspection, I used my knowledge of Fuin Jutsu to strengthen my hack no Fuin seal many times over. Shiki. The amount of chakra that was placed there was colossal, considering that the chakra was concentrated. The filter seal also had to be debugged, but nevertheless, I soon stopped caring about the problem of chakra exhaustion and the fickle Senin. Moto. But I still haven't signed the summoning contract. I haven't signed it yet. Kurama advised me to give my body a chance to get used to such a huge supply of Sen chakra. Mito's training continued. She could easily become one of the ANBU now. Her knowledge of Fuin Jutsu was superior to mine, and what's surprising, pure Haim Uzumaki, despite the color of her grandmother's hair. Her barrier techniques were also amazing. She could easily put Kurama under such a barrier that Lisu would only whine. Over these 6 months, they began to communicate. On a short footing. The next step in her training, she chose the Bijou chains and Iri ninjutsu, but in this I am a lousy sensei, and that's putting it mildly. I can heal myself with the help of Sen chakra, but it is unlikely that I can heal someone else. Third person POV. Mito sat carefree under a tree after another training session and stroked Naruto's head. The young man fell into the sweet kingdom of Morpheus and looked like a happy child. Listen, Ku, has Naruto always been like this? Mito asked mentally. What kind, Mito-chan? Calm, responsible, cunning, smart, resourceful, kind and cheerful. The fox coughed in his subconscious from the last words, remembered that after the war Naruto turned into what they wanted to make of him all his life, a weapon. And now the reverse process was underway, which would never be able to completely heal this child. Having won the war and having lost love, most of his friends, godparents, Naruto lost faith in tomorrow, although he was able to ensure the onset of this very tomorrow for the people of that world. If they needed to destroy a bandit base without noise, witnesses or survivors, they sent Naruto. No one but him was capable of stealing the secrets of the Iwagakure ANBU archive on his own in 1 week of preparation, which included the operation itself. If they needed to find dirt on a kage from one of the villages, killed the daimyo of another country without a trace, they sent Naruto. 10 years of perfect ANBU service had disfigured the man. He was remembered as the war hero and the punisher of Konoha. However, now Naruto was beginning to return to who he once was, who he was once born to. Mito, there's a lot you don't know about Naruto. I hope he won't be offended by me showing you this, and you'll start to understand what you mean to Naruto, the fox said in a serious voice. Ku, you're scaring me. Come down, Kurama said sadly. Mito moved into the subconscious, where she changed the environment so that Lise could live more comfortably, since it was not always possible to go for a walk. The cage was wide open, and Lise was lying on a huge pillow in the middle of a flower meadow, surrounded by a lake on one side and a forest on the other. So what's the matter, Kurama? What don't I know about Naruto? You don't know what kind of person he is, but I'll show you, the fox sighed heavily. Come here, Kurama extended his fist in the direction of the girl. Should I hit? The fox nodded. As soon as she touched Fox's fist, Mito shuddered. Naruto's entire life flashed before her eyes. Kurama blocked only some of the most personal memories, but the girl saw everything else. The childhood of a child who lived in persecution, hatred, contempt, and cruelty. 4 years old, a nurse tried to strangle him. 5 years old, an attempt to drown. Naruto tied his hands to a log and tied a weight to his feet, then thrown into a lake. The weight prevented the boy from pulling himself up on the log to take a breath. Age 6, an attempt to burn him alive. Age 7, a shinobi tried to scalp and skin the child's face. Age 8, Naruto was put on a rack and had the muscles and tendons on his arms and legs torn. Age 9, his hands were dipped in boiling oil and then tied with plastic bags, which resulted in scars that disappeared under the influence of chakra. Kurama only after 6 months. 10 years he was left at the number 44 test site in the hope that he would be eaten by the animals that live there. After that, the attempts to kill him stopped, but no one cancelled the hatred and contempt. He felt them even in the team. This picture began to subside only after Jiraiya took Naruto for training. Well, and then Mito saw Naruto's grief when they reported the death of his beloved sensei. She saw what happened to Konoha on the day of Pain's attack. And despite all the pain he suffered from this cursed, godforsaken village, Naruto sought to prove that he was worthy, tried to get recognition. Mito saw Hinata's confession on the battlefield, meeting Naruto's father and mother. From the memories, the girl was able to feel the feelings that the blonde experienced. She saw those attempts to confess their feelings that Naruto and Hinata made, but the war prevented them. And after, everything was covered by the veil of death, right up to the death of Haim Hyuga. She saw that terrible scene when Naruto brought her body to her father Hayashi. Mito was unconsciously crying all that time. She had a range of feelings: fear, anger, rage, hatred, contempt, disgust, condescension, love, sympathy, compassion, and helplessness. This death was the last thread to be severed. And now Mito looked through the last 10 years. Here she recognized Naruto, determined, purposeful on a mission, pragmatic, cold, calculating, tactful, reserved, strong, responsible, calm, cunning, smart, dodgy, insidious. Here she met Naruto's nightmares that did not leave him during these 10 years. There was no such thing as that kind Naruto. There was no warmth, not a single ray of light. A smile mask replaced the once cheerful, happy, living Naruto. His life ended in that war, along with Hinata, on whose grave the body of this man died. His spiritual life ended a long, long time ago. Mito sat there for a few more minutes, unaware that Kurama had stopped transmitting memories to her. Her limp body sank to her knees, and she began to sob loudly. It was too hard, too painful, too scary. I hope you now understand that Naruto is not just a little boy. Kurama, now, he is the same as after her death? Mito asked with fear, her black eyes staring at one point. No! The fox roared so loudly that the girl's ears were blocked. Now you are the only thread that connects Naruto, who lies on your lap, with Naruto, who always smiled, was naughty and behaved like a rare idiot. With Naruto, who lived before that damned war. The giant fox said in a seething voice. Forgive me, Kurama. I don't say anything, the fox said calmly. Her feelings were no secret to him. If you understand, go, I'll go for a walk too. I haven't seen the light of God for a long time. Yes. Both left the subconscious. Kurama went into the nearest forest, near the training ground. The island where the village was located was very large. Several Konohagakure could easily fit on it, but of course Uzushio was several times smaller. Mito leaned over Naruto, tears rolling down her face and falling on the blonde. NPOV. I woke up feeling wetness on my face. Water occasionally dripped onto my face, and when it hit my lips, I realized they were tears. I opened my eyes and saw Mito's tear-stained face above me, and my chest immediately began to ache. Hey, what's wrong? I reached out and wiped away her tears. Kurama, showed your memories, admitted Mito. Oh, Karama, who asked you? Although okay, I can't be angry at this red-haired, impudent, furry face, who has only been looking for the last 6 months, how to put a pig on me and a bigger one. I grinned and, raising myself up on my elbows, kissed my Heim. At least I managed to make a normal confession to this Heim. The kiss was long and very sensual. Mito tried to overwhelm my memories, my pain, with pure feelings. And she did it perfectly. Only after a couple of minutes our lips parted and Mito smiled at me with her bright, kind, happy and so warm smile. I settled comfortably on her legs again, and Mito fell asleep from the impressions. A couple of minutes later, an ANBU appeared in the clearing and dropped to one knee. Daijin-sama, Yuzukage asked you to appear. I nodded and the ANBU disappeared into the leaves of Shunshin. I put a seal on Mito's head that prevented her from dreaming. You never know what she'll dream about after such a beautiful story. I picked her up in my arms and the next second I was already at their estate. Aya showed me where to put my daughter, which I did. Not forgetting to mention that I put the seal so that she wouldn't have nightmares. The next second I was already standing on one knee in front of Daichi. Naruto, there's no one in the office, take off your mask and stand up. So what's the matter, Daichi-sama? I asked, settling myself more comfortably in the chair. It's time to start the second part of the plan. From whom? Make your own choice. It was your idea, after all, the old man said carelessly. However, his excitement was noticeable. Okay, Daichi-sama, I'll start with the Hatake clan. Why? Yuzukage decided to ask. They are excellent trackers that can rival the Hyuga and Inuzuka. I see. Good. This will be useful. Who will conduct the negotiations? I inquired. The old man flashed his eyes conspiratorially. Mito. Interesting. She's not stupid, she can handle it. Prepare the group, you leave tomorrow at dawn. I'll notify Mito myself. Take as many people as you need, you'll go. Under the mask. Preferably without ANBU. Carry out. Yes, sir. I bowed low and disappeared. I was home in a second. Gathering things and equipment, checking seals and uniforms. And then I had to find the right number of people. In the mission distribution department, I was told that there were 20 free jonin left. Of these, I chose 10 that I considered necessary. 1 censor, 2 medics, 2 Tokujo fighters in Taijutsu and Kenjutsu, 1 Tokujo in Genjutsu, and the remaining 4 were well trained in ninjutsu, 2 had 2 elements, and 2 more had 3. That same evening, Yuzukage explained to Mito what to do and say, how to behave during negotiations, what to refer to when talking with elders and the head of the clan. At 5 in the morning, only Daijin and Mito were in the Yuzukage's office. So, you are heading to the Hatake clan on a diplomatic mission. Mito, if any difficulties arise, contact Naruto. We have already discussed all possible conditions with you, but if something happens, you know who to contact. I hope the squad is ready? 10 fighters are waiting for us at the main gate of the village. Naruto said crisply, hiding his mask. 10? Mito raised her voice. Yes, Mito. We are going as security for the ambassador. That's already a lot, since usually the ambassador is accompanied by 2 or 4. After all, you are our Heim, so the security is more serious, plus we are uninvited guests. Good. If the great Daijin of the Whirlpool Village himself is watching over the situation, I will sleep peacefully, Mito bowed sarcastically, which caused a chuckle from Daichi and a displeased grumble from Naruto. Well, good luck to you. We bowed to Yuzukage and went to the gate, where the squad was waiting for us. The group of 12 people moved quickly through the tree branches to the west, towards the border of the land of grass. It was in that area of the continent that the Hatake clan had last been seen, and they were not nomads. Mito was dressed in a solid jonin uniform, over which was a traveling cloak decorated with Uzumaki signs. It was painted with intricate symbols, some of which formed a massive protective seal. The rest of the squad was in standard jonin equipment. Only Naruto was moving in the mask, but nevertheless, All the shinobi present knew that Daijin was the head of the village's special ninja squad and was providing personal protection to Haim Uzumaki. And if there is a brawl, then the fighters will have a hard time, since the main task of the masked man is the safety of Haim. Daijin, Mito called as they walked. Go and announce our arrival. We'll be there at dawn. Hi, madam. Afterwards, Daijin literally vanished using the floating technique. This technique allowed him to fly at high speed. With the help of the Sannin, Moto could sense that he was approaching a small settlement, a small village of 15 to 20 huts. The ANBU stopped moving unnoticed and allowed himself to be identified. Daijin was moving on foot through the forest, precisely in the direction of the settlement, which was several kilometers away. His group was left far behind, and would not arrive here until evening. When he approached a distance of about 1.5 to 2 kilometers, he was surrounded by 4 shinobi. A kunai was placed at his throat, another one under his shoulder blade. One katana was in the stomach area, to release its contents in one movement. A combat tanto was placed at his heart. What is Uzumaki doing here? They were only able to identify the guest by the whirlpool on his poncho. Messenger, I was sent to request an audience with the head of the Hataki clan. Daijin replied, frozen like a statue. The one who was in front and apparently in charge frowned. Why should I believe you? You don't have to. I'm just following orders to notify you that the ambassador of Yuzushiogakyu no Sato is heading your way. And who is this highly respected ambassador? The leader said sarcastically. Haim Uzumaki Ikuzoku. But this phrase worked. The head of the village sent his daughter to negotiate. The face of the head stopped depicting mockery and was now serious and cold. When will she arrive? Tomorrow at dawn. Let's go. The leader commanded briefly. Their group disappeared, but the ANBU felt that he was still being watched. After taking a few steps, the guest literally disappeared, without any special effects. Her ration had been completely redesigned, and now the technique was completely silent and did not leave behind a flash, or any traces at all. In a sense, Naruto created an analog that surpassed the original. Daijin appeared right next to Haim, who had made a stop. She always had his mark Jutsushiki. He had put it there during that first council of elders. Some of the Jonin clearly did not expect such an appearance. Daijin, Mito said in a cold voice. Everything is ready, Mito-sama. The ANBU bowed politely. Great. You have 20 minutes to rest, and then we'll move out. We should be there by evening. Daijin went to the nearest tree, in the branches of which he hid. Taking off his mask, he lit a cigarette. No one will see his face, the hood will not allow it. Mito did well to arrive at dawn. We can get some sleep and rest before the meeting. You never know what could happen and the meeting won't go as planned, then we'll have to fight our way out. It'll be better if we have the strength to fight. I have a really bad feeling about this because there are traces of cold and sharp chakra all over the forest, and it's definitely not Hataki's. Naruto thought. By evening, the group was already at the place where ANBU met Shinobi Hataki. They also set up camp there to spend the night. Jonins the Yuzushios were on edge, even though they had put up very strong barriers so that people could sleep peacefully and not worry about being attacked. Everyone get some rest. No one knows what will happen tomorrow. Get some sleep, that's an order. Daijin's voice thundered. The Jonins obediently began to pack into the tents, and Daijin created a dozen clones, who immediately took their places along the perimeter of the barrier. All of them, as one, began to meditate. The Jonins calmed down a little, since the barrier and security would work great in case of anything. Sannin Moto allowed them to feel the chakra begin to slow down in their bodies, indicating that they were falling asleep. Only one person was awake, in a separate tent. Leaving the clone by the fire, I went to Mito, whose tent also had a special barrier seal placed on it. Fuinjutsu is an amazing thing. We were able to move around without any luggage at all. Everyone carried their things in spacetime pockets, so we had everything we needed with us. Mito's tent had a basin of water for washing, which I actually used when I took off my mask. Afterwards I undressed and, leaving only my pants on, climbed onto Mito's futon. Do you even get tired after techniques? She purred. Mito, when I lay down next to her and hugged her. Well, very rarely. And where did you get so much chakra from? She asked as she turned to face me and settled on my shoulder. I just concentrated and hacked no fuin appeared on my stomach. Shiki. Mito looked at this art. You don't look like a Jinchuriki. I use it to collect sen chakra, and it always and everywhere surrounds us. You will teach me, Mito said, yawning sweetly and falling into the serene kingdom of Morphus, enveloping a person with sweet hopes, unprecedented beauty, giving the tired wanderer rest and peace. I slept so well. So warm and cozy, I'm too lazy to even get up. I opened my eyes. Mito was no longer asleep, but was just watching me. Her black eyes reflected her entire inner world. I could see confidence, calm, serenity, happiness, and love. Stretching, I kissed the girl. Mito pressed her whole body against me, deepening the kiss. And then I felt something was wrong. Looking around, I realized that it was Mito. Ahem, where did you get your tails? Yet at power! She has a bunch of tails that wrap around me and her, forming a kind of cocoon. What is this? Kurama taught me the Kaidahenka. It's something like your Rasengan or the same Biju chains. Some perform a defensive function, and your Rasengan is aimed at attacking. Why you don't like it? Mito asked, squinting. No, what are you saying? It's just a bit unexpected, and incredibly extravagant. I pulled Mito close to me and kissed her again. I felt that when Mito tried to press herself closer to me, her pigtails themselves pulled me closer to her. Very interesting. A couple more tricks, and I'll have a fit of euphoria, probably. We started to get ready and wash up, and then I quickly disappeared so as not to embarrass Mito. I used the substitution and swapped places with the clone who was at the fire and dispersed immediately after the technique. Fortunately, no one noticed the substitution. The Jonins were just starting to wake up and stick their sleepy heads out of the tents. Daijin was sitting by the fire, stirring something in a saucepan, when the first shinobi began to tumble out of their tents. It was early morning, about 5 o'clock. The sun was just beginning to touch the treetops and mountain caps that were far to the west. The fresh air, the smell of the fire and the forest lured the well-rested fighters out into the light of day. A wonderful morning! The birds had also already woken up and were filling the forest around them with the wonderful sounds of their songs. The dew that had formed during the night was now playing like bunnies in the rising sun. It seemed that this shinobi by the fire had not even laid down. He was sitting in exactly the same position as when shinobi lay down. Only his hand was moving the ladle in the pot. Good morning. Daijin-sama, did you even sleep? Asked Kyoshi. He was a medical nin. A young, vigorous guy, with an athletic build. Good day. Of course, Kyoshi. Tea? I won't refuse. The Iranian sat down by the fire. Daijin handed him a cup of freshly brewed tea. The medic took the mug, thanked him and sank into his thoughts. And half an hour later the entire squad was assembled, fed and ready to set out. The camp was dismantled in just a couple of minutes. Our sensors also sensed alien chakra, which we immediately informed the princess of the clan about. These shinobi were here about a couple of days ago. An hour later we were already entering the territory of the Hataki clan. We were met by a detachment of 10 fighters. Greetings. Mito bowed politely, and all 11 of her companions followed her. Greetings. The shinobi who met us answered in exactly the same way. Haim. Uzumaki, the chief and the elders are waiting for you, the guide said, leading us to the largest log house. I asked your people to remain here. Only one guard will go with me. The escort thought for a few seconds and nodded. It was a man, about 25 to 30 years old, with ash-colored hair that stood up straight. His face was covered by a mask that covered half of his face. He looked eerily like Kakashi. Daijin, follow me. The named man stood on the left, slightly behind Haim. He nodded to his squad. The fighters immediately huddled together and began to watch the situation. In the worst case, they would have to break out of the encirclement. On the porch of the house there were 2 wooden statues of Niken. Inside the house there was one large hall. Apparently this is where the councils of clans and shinobi of the village were held. At the end of the hall there was a table, in a semicircle. At the head sat a man of about 40 to 45 years old. To the right and left of him sat 2 elders. Along the left and right walls sat shinobi and ordinary people. Greetings, Haim. Uzumaki. I am Ryota Hitaki, the head of the Hitaki clan. The head stood up and bowed affably. The elders followed his example. My name is Mito. Uzumaki, I am Daichi's daughter. Uzumaki Kaige Yuzushiogakure no Sato. Mito bowed politely. Daijin also bowed politely and straightened up only when Mito stood up straight. What brings such a noble person to us? The council took their seats again. Ryota gestured for Mito to take the chair prepared for her in front of the council table. Daijin stood behind, pretending to be part of the interior. Yuzushiogakure offers your clan patronage from other clans, as well as an alliance. Why did such a strong, and most importantly closed, clan start looking for allies on the continent? Ryota asked seriously. Now, as you know, many clans are on the path of unification. Some are trying to form hidden villages. We are trying to find comrades and allies to protect our walls. If you have such strong enemies that prompted you to form an alliance, then why did you come to a weak clan? It was obvious that the chief was not pleased to admit this, but it was true. One of the elders clicked his teeth. At the moment, Yuzushio has no such enemies. The village tries to remain neutral and not get involved in local wars. We are looking for clans that will agree to build the great shinobi village with us. Considering the clan wars and feuds, you are very optimistic, girl. One of the elders said with disdain, as he clearly had no respect for such a young kunoichi. Daijin began to release strong ki, but at the same time in small quantities, showing that Haim should be treated with respect. Daijin! Ki disappeared in the blink of an eye. Elder Sidio, I ask you not to anger our guests. An oppressive silence fell, which Mito dared to break. Ryota-sama, my sensors have detected chakra in the forest that does not belong to your shinobi. I assume that someone has already offered you a contract? That's right. The new village of Kanahigakure no Sato is also looking for allies, the head admitted. Oh my. So Madara and Hashirama have already united? Although, this needs to be checked. I'll take care of it personally and not now. Daijin made a note to himself. Ryota. This is inappropriate. The female elder intervened. The Hitaki clan cannot afford to interfere between such opposing sides. Elder Keed, we were caught between these opponents by chance. And if the Hitaki clan is destined to join one of the sides or perish, then I wish to at least hear the conditions that Yuzushiogakure no Sato and the Uzumaki clan will offer. If a single clan is capable of forming an entire hidden village, then I think it is reasonable to at least listen to their proposal. The woman nodded in agreement. Well then. I can assume that your statement, Ryota-sama, is based on the fact that the conditions proposed by Kanahigakure no Sato do not entirely suit the Hitaki clan. Perhaps the dependence on the united clans of the Land of Fire, especially on the Inuzuka clan, offends you? Where did you get this information, Mito-sama? Ryota became wary, the elders also noticeably tensed up. The head's head was already spinning with ideas that the Uzumaki had been monitoring the Hitaki's actions for a long time. Or maybe this whole idea with the alliance was a bluff and a worthless document, for the sake of using the Hitaki clan in the war. I just assumed, Ryota-sama. Just half a year ago, the Uzumaki clan shinobi conducted a mission to rescue our clan comrades in the Land of Fire. They encountered resistance from Senju, Sarutobi, and Inuzuka fighters. That's why I assumed that one of the Kanahigakure clans is the Inuzuka. Your shinobi are known as professional trackers, and the Inuzuka have the same specialization. And therefore, the Hitaki clan will be accepted into the Konoha clan union only on the condition of dependence on the Inuzuka, because they are numerous and strong. Smart girl. She thinks quickly and skillfully finds loopholes for dialogue. Plus, Mito is very charismatic. Surprisingly, people really believe her words and Haim herself. A thought flashed through Daijin's head. Headmaster Ryota leaned back in his chair. What Mito had said was true. The elders and headmaster began to whisper among themselves. The whispers spread among the other shinobi and civilians present. Mito crossed her fingers, resting her elbows on the armrests of her chair. She was glad that she had been right, and was hiding a smile behind her fingers, which she had formed into a steeple. Haim Uzumaki rejoiced. Now Hataki is forced to listen to the conditions. They have only two options: join someone or die. It is very unlikely that Inuzuka will tolerate competitors on their territory. I have already seen such a smug face, the same smile and gleam in the eyes. Exactly. Tsunade, the mask wearer said mentally. Uzumaki-heim, please state the conditions for the Hataki clan to join Yuzushiogakure no Sato. Ryota-sama requested as he received a nod from each of the elders. I am ready to discuss any aspect that interests you. What specific question would you like to start with? Let's start with the relationship between Hataki and Uzumaki. Ikizoku. The Uzumaki clan was and will remain the dominant clan. The village was founded by them. However, this does not mean that the opinion of the Hataki clan will be ignored. Any issues concerning Uzumaki and Hataki will be resolved by mutual agreement, taking into account the opinions and interests of both clans. If issues arise between Hataki and another clan, then Uzumaki and only Uzumaki will act as a mediator and bring the disputing parties to a peace agreement. Only Uzumaki, whose candidacy will be approved by both councils, will be able to become the Kage of the village. When Yuzushiogakure counts 3 clans, the Yuzushio Clan Council will be formed, in addition to the existing Council of Elders. At the end of the monologue, Mito crossed her arms again, and excitement sparkled in her eyes and sparks of adventure ignited. That is, now in Yuzushiogakure there are only Uzumaki, whereas Ikizoku. Exactly so. The elders began to confer again, making some notes. Please continue, Mito-sama. Where will Hataki Ikizoku be located, and what is the structure of your village? Ryota voiced the next question. Until you agree to an alliance, I cannot divulge strategic information. However, regarding land, I will say this: Hataki Ikizoku will receive as much land as he needs. How so? Asked Elder Cade, taken aback by this statement. We will build a separate island where your clan will live. Over time, the infrastructure will be fully debugged there. Mito smiled broadly. Will you build an island? Riot fell out of reality. But there will be nothing there: no houses, no forests, no fields, no training grounds, nothing. Sidio intervened. Equipping the landfills, planting a forest, and plowing the land is a piece of cake. Your houses are more complicated here, although, Mito thought. Daijin! Yes, madam? The mask maker leaned towards Hima. How many shinobi in the entire squad possess fuinjutsu techniques of A rank and above? 8, including you and me, madam. Excellent. Ryota-sama, elders, if you wish, we will move all the buildings to the allocated plot of land. Mito smiled again. Everyone present was stunned by this statement. The conditions that Uzumaki proposed were, to put it mildly, interesting. And apparently they suited Hataki Ikizoku for now. But the elders still decided to consult. Mito-sama, how is this possible? Asked Ryota. With our techniques, we will be able to completely seal the structures. After unsealing, they will remain as they were sealed. Also, after unsealing, our shinobi who possess the Doton element will be able to arrange the structures as required, as well as strengthen them in the soil. Ahem. This is amazing. Cade noted. Okay. That's more or less clear, said Ryota, who had gotten over the news. Like Uzumaki, Ikizoku will relate to our clan techniques and secrets. Your secrets belong to you and no one else. Only if your people themselves want to share their knowledge, but no one will dare to oblige them. This answer satisfied the council. What prohibitions and restrictions will be imposed on the shinobi Hataki Ikizoku and ordinary citizens of our clan? Ordinary citizens who have not followed the path of the shinobi will have equal rights with the citizens of Uzumaki. No more, no less. As for the shinobi, there are also no restrictions or prohibitions for them, except for the obvious and already mentioned ones, i.e., the shinobi of Hataki Ikizoku cannot become a kage. In general, the people of Hataki Ikizoku are required to comply with the laws of the Land of Whirlpool and Uzushiogaku no Sato. But keep in mind, Mito began to speak sternly, the Uzumaki do not tolerate betrayal. Such people are not given all sorts of indulgences due to their position or any merits. Anyone is punished, be it a kage or a snotty shinobi student offended by life. The council resumed discussing and taking notes. And Mito was catching her breath. She had to talk more than anyone else. It was obvious that she was a little tired and had never negotiated before. But one could say with certainty that the girl had a talent for this, and she was a gifted talker. The shinobi who were in the hall felt a weak surge of chakra, almost imperceptible, but everyone was extremely focused, they felt it. The hall turned their gaze to Haim. Daijin took out a bottle of water from the seal, uncorked it, he handed it to Haim. Thank you. Mito accepted the bottle and began to drink greedily. After the girl had quenched her thirst, she returned the bottle, which disappeared with a pop from the escort's hand. The shinobi relaxed, nothing serious had happened. Mito-sama, will Hataki Ikizoka have the right to follow his traditions? Of course. The Uzumaki will not influence the customs, rites and traditions of the Hataki. However, there are some reservations to be made regarding marriage. Hataki Ikizoku supports patriarchy, correct? Right. In that case, if the groom is Uzumaki and the bride is Hataki, the girl goes to the family of Uzumaki's husband. If it's the other way around, then the girl goes to the Hataki family. As for the shinobi girls who end up in Hataki's husband's family, whether he is a shinobi or not, it doesn't matter, their children cannot learn Haiden and Kinjutsu. Uzumaki Ikizoku. These are clan secrets, please respect our secrets. If the opposite situation occurs, Hataki's girl moved to the family of her husband Uzumaki, then everything is at your discretion. Children will be able to study our secrets, and yours only with the permission of Hataki Ikizoku. As I said earlier, it is up to you to decide whether to reveal your knowledge or not. Children from mixed blood will not be subject to oppression and derogation in rights in any case. Okay, we have no objections here. The last thing I would like to know about is the training of the shinobi art. How is this process carried out in Uzushiogaku, and how will our people be trained? Ryota decided to finish here. Recently, a reform was carried out in Uzushiogaku in this regard, and it radically changed the system that was already in place at that time. I will not tell you all the details. Shinobi training is part of the military affairs of Uzushiogaku, but I can assure you that if a person wants to become a shinobi and has a predisposition for this, he will be provided with a teacher, and if necessary, more than one. This answer made Ryota very happy. There were many people in their settlement who could become shinobi, but because the fighters were constantly busy, the concept of training was almost completely absent. There was self-training. However, it's probably worth adding that even the reform couldn't soften the learning process, Mito said seriously. What do you mean, Mito-sama? Ryota also became serious. Shinobi are the warriors of the village who ensure the well-being of their home. This is a heavy burden, and often ordinary people do not understand what a burden the students take on. Our shinobi children are trained from an early age to kill people. To kill for their family, for their home. They are trained to understand that shinobi are not pathetic brats, morally incapable of prioritizing life and death, but that they are protectors hiding in the shadows of ordinary citizens. They must know when a person can be saved, and when this will only make the situation worse. If a student is unable to overcome himself, to cross this line, then no one will force him, but he will still have the opportunity to become, for example, an Irionin. And how is this ability tested? After completing the general course, the students are taken outside the village. Under the supervision of an individual teacher, or if there are not enough teachers, then when they are free, or even in groups. However, there is always an individual teacher who is responsible for the provided student. This is a kind of wolf training for little wolf cubs. The teacher catches a robber, bandit, shinobi, or a gang. The cubs watch the process and learn, and in the end, they must kill the caught prey themselves. This really deviates from the standard teaching scheme. The elders and the clan chief began to confer. They received answers to all their questions, and now they had to decide for themselves which side they would take, and whether they would take it at all. Mito-sama, he addressed Haim. Ryota, after 5 minutes of discussion, we will inform you of the final decision tomorrow. As you wish. Mito unclasped her hands and stood up. Then I will take my leave. We will appear at dawn the next day. All the best. Mito and Daijin bowed deeply. They responded in kind. Haim Uzumaki gathered her squad and led them to the campsite. Chapter 6, covering up the tracks. I woke up in Mito's arms. No dirty talk, we just slept on the same futon. It was still very early. I didn't want to leave her, so I just watched her sleep. She looked like a small child who had a good dream. She was smiling at something in her sleep, and like a cat, she was pulling her palms to her neck. But now the chakra began to flow faster through her body, which meant that she was waking up. She opened her eyes and began to look around. Mito came across a studying gaze and smiled welcomingly. Having kissed the girl, I crawled out from under the blanket and went to wash myself. Quickly getting ready and putting on a steel mask, I turned to her. Mito-sama, I will gather the people when it's dawn, I smiled, but it was not visible under the mask. I see you really like wearing this mask. Mito smiled. Well, it's more of a habit. Besides, it's more convenient to carry out your father's orders. You are the head of ANBU and Oinin, the elder of Yuzushiogakure, my bodyguard as an ANBU fighter, and finally, my love. How many more masks will you wear? She said playfully. As much as my rebellious soul desires. Besides, it's fun. Mito stretched her whole body, showing the graceful elegance of a cat. Get up, lazybones, we still have to escort this bunch home. I grinned and disappeared, replacing myself with a clone, who immediately dissipated. You're on fire, Blondie, the girl muttered. Hataki hasn't agreed yet. And anyway, I want to sleep. The girl wrapped herself in the blanket again and began to snore sweetly. And I got up a bit early. The sun hasn't even begun to light up the sky. There's still time before dawn. Maybe. After thinking for a moment, I slipped outside the dome. An unknown shinobi in a steel-colored hooded poncho, from under which black pants and sandals of the same color were visible, quickly jumped from branch to branch. The speed of movement exceeded the limits of a standard shinobi. He did not touch the surface of the wood. From the side it seemed that he was flying. His face was hidden by a spiral mask, on which the shadow of the hood fell. Daijin used the floating technique, which he inherited from Hagoromo. When used by Sannin mode, as well as hiding his chakra, made it very difficult to detect him. Hermit mode distorted his chakra, making it similar to the energy of the surrounding environment. By hiding his chakra, Daijin was able to ensure a safe path for himself. Sensors would not detect him unless this shinobi showed his face. My Seigakyu no Jutsu, a whisper was heard from under the mask. Behind the next tree, the shinobi's silhouette completely blurred with the surroundings. Now the only way to detect Daijin is a highly developed dojutsu. The shinobi was moving towards a village in the center of the Land of Fire. Kanahigaku no Sato is a new hidden shinobi village. The mask maker had only 2 goals, reconnaissance and the theft of the Uchiha tablets, the very ones on which the only accessible mention of the Rakuto exists. Sannin and the Tentails Biju the Jubi named Shinju, as well as the way to awaken the Rinnegan. We need to seal these tablets, but a scroll is not the best option. It can be found, studied, and unsealed. I will try to combine the sealing technique and my gift from Old Man Rakuto. Let's see what comes of it. The shinobi encouraged himself, not slowing down. After a couple more minutes, Daijin approached a section of the forest, behind which he felt many chakra centers. Konoha, there aren't that many clans here from what I can see. The village is hidden under an illusion and a weak barrier, but I don't sense anyone from the Kurama clan, who are renowned for their skill in this area, nor the Yuhi clan. The illusion is saturated with Sen chakra. The only user here is Hashirama Senju. So he can cast at least some kind of genjutsu too. Not bad, Not bad at all, Hashirama. Daijin began to form seals and change the barrier, which with his current knowledge was a bit childish. A small gap appeared in front of him, through which the mask wearer was able to pass. The spy began to hide his chakra and use Sen chakra for techniques and movement, the supply of which he replenished from the seal. He moved silently, trying not to get into the eyes of any shinobi at all. His main problem was the Uchiha and possibly the Hyuga. Daijin did not know whether this village had managed to draw in this clan with the dojutsu, but he could not take risks. The eyes of both clans can sense the fluctuations of the spiritual and physical components of his chakra. We need to explore the whole village. There's not much time left. Oh my god! Kagebunshi no Jutsu, 12 copies created on the basis of Sen chakra appeared in the undergrowth near the village fence. They immediately used camouflage techniques on themselves. Daijin was glad that the clones created from this chakra were indistinguishable from a tree, a stone, or a puddle. But the threat of exposure through dojutsu cannot be ruled out. Daijin walked around the village and found himself on the opposite side of Konoha from where he entered. After that, the mask maker left a Jutsushiki mark on a kunai keyed and headed to the Uchiha quarter. He hoped that it was in the same place where he was in his world. Luck smiled on him. Having reached the Uchiha quarter, Daijin began to look for the clan's underground catacombs, and he found them. Kajiro, whispered Daijin, and his body sank underground. The Zetsu underground movement technique that I managed to copy. If I didn't have the Rinnegan, I wouldn't be able to figure it out. It's based on Doton. Fortunately, I have it in this world too. However, without the Sennin I can't use Moto. The level of Saishitsu Henka is still weak. Passing through the earth, roots, plants, and making a hole in the dungeon with the help of a mini Rasengan, Daijin found himself in the catacombs. The mask wearer immediately used the camouflage technique on himself. However, in order to recognize the user of the technique, the Uchiha must activate his dojutsu. And some have not yet awakened it. Daijin began to rummage around the dungeon. It wasn't big. A couple of corridors and only 3 rooms, and in the last one, he finally found what he came here for. Oh no, the technique definitely won't go unnoticed. We'll have to act quickly. Really quickly. If possible, we should use only Sen chakra. The shinobi gathered his courage. Having thrown off his disguise, Daijin began to furiously kill the guards inside the dungeon, who did not expect to see anyone else in the walled-up catacombs. The element of surprise played into his hands. Having finished with the guards, Daijin found himself in front of the tablets of impressive size with one jump. Senpo, Fuinjutsu, Koton, Sukuru Sokubaku no Jutsu, Hermit's Method, Seal Technique, Steel Release, Steel Binding Technique. Having folded a long series of seals, the mask wearer cried out and hit the floor with his hands. From his hand, symbols stretched out to all 6 tablets. Like a tree, with the user of the technique at the base of the trunk and the tablets at the crown. The symbols surrounded Daijin and each of the tablets. The floor shook slightly under his feet. Come on, come on! Daijin begged. Steel sarcophagi flew out of the ground, perfectly shaped for each of the tablets. Each sarcophagus consisted of 2 parts. The back walls moved towards their tablets, and the lids closed with a deafening bang. From the circle of symbols that was under Daijin, along the line of seals that stretched to each sarcophagus, steel chains formed. With a characteristic noise, they rushed each to its own sarcophagus and began to wrap them with an innumerable number of skeins. It seemed that these chains were alive. At the same time as the skeins of chains were thrown, the sarcophagi went underground into the seal symbols. When they disappeared, only the pattern of the entire seal remained on the floor, which began to be drawn first into the circle of symbols under the blonde, and then rise up his arms. Daijin felt a burning sensation on the skin in the area of the radius bone of his right hand. So the seal found its place on its own, flashed the thought. Damn it, they've already broken into the dungeon. Making a concentration sign, Daijin dispelled all of his clones and leapt to his mark, immediately sealing the kunai he had left behind. Creating a strong enough chakra burst to attract attention, Daijin launched his floating and Sennin techniques at full speed. Moto, he dashed to the southeast. He had to lead the trail away. Now he was moving in the opposite direction from Mito's camp. The trace of my arrival will completely disappear in half an hour. We need to distract Konoha's attention from Hatake and Mito. If it weren't for the Sen chakra, this thread to Hatake Ikizoku could have been useful for another day. Daijin felt that the chakra flash he had created had worked and that he was now being chased. They couldn't catch up, but now a fresh trail of mixed chakra could be felt. Overcoming obstacles and natural barriers, Daijin reached the river. He created 2 clones that began to emit a slight radiation. Chakra. One went with the flow, the other against it. And the original crossed the river and set off in the same direction, the land of wind. After another half-hour of mad racing, Daijin crossed the border of the desert and forested area. This meant that he had entered the territory of the country of wind. Making a sharp turn to the west, Daijin began to move at the limit of his capabilities. The mad race continued. There was no pursuit, but the mask wearer was sure that they were following him on a fresh trail. I think it's possible now. A thought flashed through Daijin's head and he made a concentration sign. The trail suddenly ended, and the mask wearer found himself in Mito's tent, because the girl had a Jutsushiki mark for the Hiraishin no Jutsu technique. Are you completely crazy? The last thing Daijin remembered before darkness enveloped his consciousness. POV Konoha. It was early morning in the village when the ground began to shake in the Uchiha clan. Hashirama immediately headed their senju is a young and ambitious Shodai Hokage and his only surviving brother, Tobirama Senju. Gradually, other shinobi began to gather there. At one of the closed areas of the Uchiha clan, there was already a crowd of shinobi of the clan. Uchiha Madara was currently busy removing the seal from the entrance to the dungeon. There was still a little bit left when the Senju brothers arrived. Madara, what's going on here? Shodai barked. I don't know. Uchiha snapped. He really hoped that it was nothing serious. Explain. This is the clan dungeon where we keep our secrets. I have no idea what's going on, but the tremors are coming from there. I'll go with you. Brother, keep an eye on everything. Okay, Tobirama replied. As soon as the entrance plate opened, a terrifying concentration of chakra poured out. Madara and Hashirama immediately rushed there. It cannot be, Madara raged when he saw the corpses of the first Uchiha, who were the guards of the dungeon. They changed every day. And getting here was something unthinkable. Madara, look! His friend called out. Uchiha silently approached the hole in the wall, and then figured out what the guests might need. He rushed into the first room, where the secret techniques were hidden, but everything was in its place. The same situation was with the armory, but the third room, where the ancient legacy was kept, the Uchiha tablets, was empty. No! Madara roared and began to rush around the absolutely empty room. Our tablets should have been here. The knowledge of the ancients. Who dared to rip us? The young head of the clan roared. He did not have time to translate the last 2 tablets. It was there that the method of awakening the Rinnegan was described. It was there that there was information about the 10-tailed, the source of almost limitless power. But all this will remain a secret for the Uchiha, forever. Madara and Hashirama felt a burst of chakra that did not belong to either shinobi. Konoha. Madara rushed there as if he had broken loose from his chain, but it was already empty. On Hashirama's orders, the best trackers and sensors from Aburame, Inuzuka and Hyuga were brought in. The chakra trail was fresh. Shinobi specializing in tracking pointed in the direction to the southeast to the land of wind. Madara rushed there with enviable frenzy. Problems arose when the shinobi approached the river. They had to split up, because there were 3 tracks, and the one that went against the current was already very weak. Hashirama Senju led a squad of trackers on a weak trail. Tobirama and his squad went with the flow. And the zealous Madara led the majority of the shinobi. Uchiha and the trackers across the river. An hour later, Madara followed the thief to the border. Without a second thought, Uchiha led them into another country's territory. If they were caught, it would mark an invasion, since Sanagekure no Sato had recently formed here, and the situation between the countries and clans was already very precarious. After the sharp turn to the west, into the land of Earth, the trail almost ended. Madara's group was never able to reach the place where Daijin had made his jump. The trail was cut off. Even the Niken Inuzuka was unable to track Hiraition's jump using Senchakra. Hashirama and Tobarama's search also reached a dead end. One trail led to the land of grass, the other to the land of tea. Both of them ended in the middle of the road. The trail that led to Hitaki Ikizoka had long since disappeared. POV Mito. I need to get up. Naruto left about an hour and a half ago. Everything should be ready. The thought flashed. I got up and went to wash myself. It would be impolite to come dirty. I am Haim after all. Uzumaki Ikizoku. Having unsealed a large basin, I filled it with water using water techniques, and fire techniques helped to heat the water. Okay. How nice to relax and soak in a warm bath. And damn, how I don't want to see those elders' twisted faces again. Riot is still okay, he's clearly interested in an alliance, but will he be able to convince the council and the clan? These thoughts didn't leave me even when I got out of the water and started getting dressed. True, I didn't have time. I had just put on my panties when Naruto moved to me using his father's technique. No, he's turning! No. I grabbed the first thing that came to hand. Are you crazy? A zinc basin came into my hand, but a smaller one. I didn't even have time to think before I hit him on the head. Bzdeny. Came the sound of the blow. At first I didn't understand why there was such a sound of metal hitting metal, and only then did it dawn on me that he had a steel mask on his face. Naruto quickly sank down and didn't move anymore. Red as a lobster, I got dressed and calmed down. Please look at how he is. AI. Fox's sleepy yawn was heard, and then he finally climbed out of the cage. He looked at Naruto, who was unconscious, in bewilderment, and then turned his inquisitive gaze to his Jinchuriki. Well, I flared up again, but quickly clenched my will into a fist. I wasn't dressed, and Naruto burst into the tent. Well done! You didn't lose your grip. Fox decided to make Naruto's situation worse. What? I immediately grabbed the zinc basin. Hey, calm down. I was joking. I confess it was a bad joke. So what's the matter? Well, I hit him because I wasn't dressed, she answered embarrassedly. And? You may not be having fun yet, but you sleep on the same futon. And that's the only reason you lit up his head? Well. I'm sorry, I started to mumble. But really, why did I attack him? Nothing terrible happened. You will ask him for forgiveness. The fox grinned. Kurama approached the sprawled boy and wrapped his tails around his body, beginning to conduct an examination. Severe physical exhaustion and very severe chakra depletion, as well as concussion. Apparently, he didn't try to cover his head with steel skin, because he was already at the limit, and he clearly didn't expect an attack. I barely audibly whined something unintelligible, and Kurama cast a spell over the boy's body. He was able to heal him quickly only because he had spent many years as a Jinchuriki, otherwise the fox would have been powerless. Kurama's efforts continued for about another half hour. So, here's the deal. I replenished my chakra reserves a little, relieved my general fatigue, and cured my concussion. Thank you, Kurama. I smiled and stroked the fox. Mito, be careful. This guy's head is fickle, and if you knock his last brains out, this blonde idiot will definitely do some crazy shit. Hee hee. Now seriously. You almost broke his parietal bone. Such injuries can lead to a concussion at best, and death at worst. A blow like that can even cause amnesia, Kurama chuckled, realizing that he had seriously scared the red-haired girl. I shuddered, and a second later I was already hugging the guy's lying body, trying to cuddle up to him tighter. And Kurama continued to replenish the blonde's chakra supply. After a couple of minutes, Naruto opened his eyes. Where am I? Who are you? Asked the guy with a stupid look. End all POV.